Hello, everyone. Welcome to Detransitions, a look at gender journeys of youth who have discontinued the gender detransition. I'm Pullen, Sansfaçon, and I'm with Rosalie today. So this is the research team. So if we look at the literature review on detransition, we see a growing interest in recent years and existing research that focus on detransition rates and regret and often present detransition as a return to cis identity, although more and more research see a diversity. We need to, however, better understand the experience of youth who detransition. So to meet this aim, we decided to have a study that looked at understanding the phenomenon of detransition by analyzing discourse of youth, what we find on social media, and health professional. Today's presentation focuses exclusively on youth narrative, so we'll present youth discourse on the evolution of their gender and gender identity through their transition and detransition journey. To achieve that, we conducted 20 semi-directed interviews with youth aged between 15 and 25, coming from a variety of countries. Interviews lasted between 68 and 116 minutes. The analysis was done through reflective thematic analysis and an adapted version of Sardana longitudinal analysis tool. The adapted version is used because the data was not prospective longitudinal, but more retrospective study of their discourses. These are the 4 themes that came out as analysis of thematic analysis. So you've got youth affirmed gender identity, sexual identity, relationship to gender norm, and relationship to body and dysphoria. So Rosalie will present the data now.
So as you can see, the first table is about a youth's affirmed gender identity. As we can see here, only 1% was assigned male at birth, which is a limit in that study. The first thing we can see is there's a wide diversity of identifications all along the gender journey. So for example, during the transition, many people identify themselves as trans, but not everyone, and some may have tried different labels. For now, gender identities remain very varied. So you could identify as detrans, as your sex assigned at birth, as non-binary or something else. We can also see that among participants, the identifications were not fixed, which allow us to see the fluidity of gender. For some, the changes were about how they felt in their gender, while for others, it was a word to describe themselves that changed. So for example, as Dylan says, it was really just a word I was using to describe myself. That changed. For youth sexual identity, here are some examples. And looking through youth narrative, we can see that it's very similar to gender identity in the sense that identifications were very diverse all along the gender journey, and the sexual identities evolved, pointing out its fluidity. For youth's relationship to gender norms, we can see there's like different trajectories, and the relationship to gender norms evolved over time. Before transition, many youth reported being gender non-conforming in different ways. And we can see 2 things in that table. So first one is a pressure to conform or to perform gender. And the second one is a feeling of liberation from gender norms, and that could occur at different moments. So now after the detransition, we can see that some maintain a conflictual relationship with gender norms, but there's less gender pressure and more freedom to be their authentic selves. Just as Sasha expresses it, I think I felt boxed in by the femininity, and then I was boxed in by this masculinity, and I'm just kind of like, I'm done with it all. For youth's relationship to body dysphoria, in that table, you can see in red what is negative feelings toward bodies, and in blue, the positive feelings. An important thing to notice is that almost all participants talked about a complex relationship they had with their bodies, which changed over time. So they reported being uncomfortable with their bodies before transition, and over the course of their journey, they talked about experiencing body discomfort, which was often interpreted as related to gender dysphoria, but also to other factors such as eating disorders, trauma, dysmorphia, or something else. During transition, many participants recalled feeling better in their bodies. However, there was still some difficulties, such as being unsatisfied of the change. And now the relationship to body is varied, but includes positive and negative feelings. As Nolan expresses it, I thought like I would just go on these medication and then slowly resemble a cis woman.
So if we look at the data, we can see that throughout their journey, transition, detransition, and now, there's a diversity between participants in terms of diversities of identities, so their gender and sexual identities, and a different relationship to gender norms and to body. And there's also an evolution and fluidity among participants, evolution of the relationship to gender norms and of relationship to body dysphoria, and fluidity of identities. So there are some coherence between our data and what was published previously, and so far that the transitions are heterogeneous and the discourse and experiences are diverse. In terms of clinical implication, we can see that much fluidity over time means that current data do not allow to predict the transition. It's very difficult to see what is going on. Different youth have different experience and it changes over time. And there's no clear pattern in terms of time, duration, or intensity of experience of body dysphoria, for example. So it is important to adopt a therapeutic alliance to allow youth to freely explore their own experience without pressure. Thank you.